The idea of using data in both XML format and in relational format is a great one, but we have to have some way of transferring the data back and forth. And so in this video, I want to talk about how we can output XML formatted data from a regular Transact SQL query. Now, the T-SQL select statement can produce result sets in the XML format. Now, the problem is, or not a problem, but the challenge is exactly what we want that XML format to look like. Now, there are three options for creating XML output using T-SQL. There's for XML raw, for XML auto, and for XML path. And with each one of these, you can get varying degrees of extensibility or control or adjustment, however you want to think about that, on how your XML is formatted, how the tags are related, and so forth. One of the things that you will see with XML, if you get 3 or 4 people in a room and ask them to decide how the XML should be formatted for certain layout, you will no doubt get 2 or 3 different responses because there's a lot of leeway here. There's a lot of creativity involved. There's a lot of options on exactly how you can lay this out, and they're all valid, but it does make differences in how you parse it and use it later. Now, already you can tell that the world of XML can start to get deep on you. So again, just wade out into it little by little, build on that knowledge, and you'll be able to do a lot with it. But suffice it to say, there's a lot of power in working with XML from SQL Server. Now, I want to mention something here. If you've been around this idea of outputting XML from queries for very long, you've noticed I didn't mention the explicit option. Well, the path option replaces explicit. Explicit is there for backward compatibility only. Explicit used proprietary T-SQL syntax for formatting the XML output. And path now uses standard XML XPath expressions. And since I mentioned XPath, let me go ahead and give you something else. You need to go out and read about XPath in books online or in other publications out there. XPath is kind of a standard on how we go through and locate nodes in XML and how we parse it and so forth. And the explicit used proprietary T-SQL syntax because Microsoft simply wanted to give people a way to work with it. And since then, XPath kind of became the standard. And so Microsoft has now implemented the path option to support XPath expressions. But XPath starts to get out of the scope of this particular course. So I'm not going to go into it here, but you can just go out and read about it. Another thing is when you're outputting XML in the SQL Server Management Studio, and you're going to see this in the 3 videos that I do for examples, the output gets truncated at some point. You're not going to get an entire XML document, usually, out of the query tool in the SQL Server Management Studio. Now you can change this to a certain extent in Tools Options, and I'll show you how to do that because it comes up, I think by default, 256 characters or something like that in one string. Now what happens in the real world, just for your information, XML output is usually directed back to a C# or VB.NET memory object, like a data set, those kinds of things, maybe even a data reader where we can parse it and read through it. But XML is usually streamed back. We don't know how large it's going to be. We don't know how involved it's going to be. And so the SQL Server Management Studio is just not built to handle that kind of a streamed output. So just keep in mind that when you get to the point that you're ready to output this stuff to your application or whatever, you're going to have to do just a little bit more digging on how to actually go through that. You can use the SQL command functionality, SQL CMD. You can go out and Google that later and see exactly how to handle all the output that's coming back from these type queries. But for now, I don't want to confuse you. Just get the basics, get comfortable with generating XML using select, get comfortable with select, and make sure it's making sense to you. And we'll look at these options in code over the next probably 3 videos. We're going to do a separate video on XML raw, XML auto, and XML path. And I'll just kind of help you get your feet wet here and kind of give you a launching point to move on from here. But do keep in mind, on the exam, you do need to be familiar with XML raw, XML auto, XML path, and obviously you already know that we can output XML from SQL Server using the T-SQL select statement.